And I'd like to pay tribute to the homeowners who are enduring the nightmare of Pyrite-affected homes and all the suffering that entails, and particularly who have then organised themselves in Pyrite Action to ceaselessly and very effectively campaign for justice for themselves and for all who have this terrible problem. By contrast, it has to be said that the local authorities and the government, successive governments, have been slow to respond and actually keen to generally wash their hands of any responsibility for the remediation of those homes affected. Fingal County Council was commended here for a report in 2007, but Fingal County Council signally failed to bring about enforcement in housing estates owned by itself against the builders who built it, where pyrite in areas of Mulhuddard. And my colleague, Councillor Ruth Coppinger, was criticised by council officials and councillors as late as 2010 for pointing up this issue with the argument that it would not be helpful and would devalue homes. So I'm afraid that there has been a washing of hands and an anxiety to cover up the situation. Now, last Council in May of 2011, when I raised the problem of pyrite with the Taoiseach on leaders' questions in the stall and pressed for a task force to be set up as a matter of urgency, even on that day the government wasn't prepared to give a clear answer. Now, happily, a pyrite panel was subsequently set up and took a year to report, which was too long in the circumstances, though we welcome the fact that the issues are laid out by that report and before the Dáil today. But really, the issues here are not complex. And I reject the Pyrite panel's conclusion that essentially this situation could not have been avoided, which is really what they are coming up with. And that Pyrite, as they said in the letter, was a perfect storm, as if it were due to mysterious forces coming from some strange outside source that could not be controlled. Now, it's true that the chemical reaction which sees pyrite and iron sulfide reacting with moisture and oxygen to create the expansion of the affected rock with incredible force and which causes devastating structural damage to homes, that couldn't be controlled. But what could and should have been controlled is that pyrite infill should never have arrived at a building site in the first place, let alone found its way into the homes that are now suffering. And it is manifestly not the case that there was no knowledge of pyrite heave prior to 2007, which this report attempts to say.
Deputy, you're sharing with Deputy Bruin and Deputy Nulty, is that right? No? Or just two people?
No.
I have three names here, I'm sorry. There's 15 minutes in the slot. So have you 15 minutes? Sorry?
No, what time is...
10 minutes in the slot, sorry.
Yeah. What time is this? There is no time limit on this debate.
No, 10 minutes on the speaking slot, Deputy, as I'm saying.
And I have 10 minutes.
If you wish, yes, but I've given other names.
No, Cahill, look, sorry, this is the first I've heard of it. No,
you go ahead. Yeah.
I want everybody that wants to have a say to have their say. But since there is no time limit, I can have my 10, and other deputies who are sitting in the House and who offer will have their time.
That's fine.
As according to standing orders. Okay. Oh dear. So more than 30 years ago in Britain, there were warnings in the civil engineering literature with regard to pyrite. 25 years ago, there was a detailed paper which was called Cause and Significance of Heave at Llandaff Hospital in Cardiff, Wales, a case history of ground floor heave due to gypsum growth. And in 1992, there was an international conference of the construction industry and civil engineering in Bristol with the implications of ground chemistry for construction outlined in very detailed submissions. And are you telling me that these major companies in the Irish construction, the suppliers of infill, like Irish Asphalt, Roadstone, Kilsare and Concrete, some of which are billionaire enterprises, that they had no knowledge or should have no knowledge of this situation? It simply doesn't stand up. and there should have been detailed testing going on, because the knowledge was there, and that would then have avoided this problem. Also, the Building Regulation Advisory Board and the National Standards Authority of Ireland, the reality is that they did not apprise themselves of the situation, perhaps, and insist on proper standards and proper testing. Now, what needs to be done? And again, this is not complex. And in the letter which Pyrite Action has sent to the deputies, it is laid out very, very clearly and very succinctly. The immediate establishment of a comprehensive and systematic notification, testing and remediation scheme at no expense to homeowners. That's the first thing. It must not be an individual tip-tapping around homes as they come to notice. It has to be a comprehensive examination. Then the immediate removal of defective infill from all homes. And I find it incredible that the Minister comes in here today and says, I agree with the recommendation that it would be unreasonable to expect dwellings not exhibiting damage to be remediated simply because there is pyrite in the hard core. And he says that this has been agreed by the High Court. I don't care what the High Court says, Lascian Corle, where there is a risk of pyrite going into expansion mode, that pyrite must be removed. It's crazy to say you wait until the house starts falling apart. If a bomb is found under your home, do you say, sure, I leave it there and hopefully it won't explode, and if it does explode, then I'll take care of the consequences. That should be rejected out of hand. That independent and professional coordination of remedial works should be carried out, independent structural recertification, full compliance with building regulations. That's absolutely crucial. And on the matter of funding, I'll come on to in a minute. Now, Lascian Corle, the reality is that pyrite is only one awful symptom of the greed that drove the home construction industry in the 10 years of the property bubble. And the profiteering, in other words, in that industry that led to an entire generation of young working people being shackled to 40-year mortgages at unsustainable rates and now afflicted with these problems. The reality is that the real building regulations were not written by the state or by local authorities, but they were written by the profiteering construction bosses when they gathered to shower Fianna Fáil with funds at an infamous tent in Galway, and where the regulations were then subsequently simply not implemented. And even in this Dáil, in the days of the bubble, the parties of then opposition, like Fine Gael, were silent on what was going on in the construction industry. Look at the disaster of fire hazards, in which thousands of people currently live, which is another... agus no pressure than vision son. Priory Hall is only one horrendous example, but I do urge deputies and ministers to read a letter that was sent yesterday by a Priory Hall resident to every single TD and minister on the heartbreak that those people are facing. Stephanie Meehan, little did we know, she says, a year later we'd still be asking those questions, still wondering when, if ever, will we get to go home and where our homes will be. That's the reality. The victims of this greed, just like the people suffering from pyrite. Now, I think that, again, Chairman, I am appalled at the reliance of the Minister for the Environment on the corporate entities which are responsible for this scandal to put it back together. And, you know, a simple a simple example... Minister McEntee, if you...
Order, please.
I don't know if you're a farmer or not, if you're a small farmer, but if you were, and if a bunch of foxes broke into your hen house and created mayhem and havoc, would you go and round up the same foxes and says, go back in now and repair the damage that you have done? It's quite ludicrous. It's quite ludicrous. So the question is, who will pay in regard to the pyrite scandal and the remediation of the homes affected? And I say all those who had their snouts in the property bubble trough must pay, absolutely. The big builders, the big bankers, the insurance companies, the quarry owners. But they will now start a process that could go on for years, trying to evade responsibility and evade paying up. Homeowners cannot wait and put their lives on hold while these corporate entities slug it out. So we need a public fund immediately. We can put that public fund in place. We can take civil engineers, construction workers, etc. off the door and put them on a publicly funded scheme to remediate all the homes and hit in the meantime and begin to take the levy, to take massive levies from these people. But we cannot leave homeowners waiting for these issues to be again decided in time scale by these entities. The people leaving the House today, as Ceann Comhairle, must have certainty, they must have a time limit, and they must have a schedule of the work and when it will be carried out. Nothing less is agreeable to us.
No, may the one.